Da, 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 da. What is up, YouTube? I'm doing live hangout. I thought trying to make more content. It's actually an interesting play. I thought I wasn't going to make that much content, and now here I am making stuff kind of daily again. It's more just to re-exercise my brain, as I've maybe you've heard before. Got a couple of side hustles that are taking off, and so me making content about this will only eventually lead me to make better content for those two things. As you can see, it involves some sort of sewing, although I don't do the sewing, me and my wife. So yeah, it's all going well. But the purpose of this late night show is a Q&A. Just rearranged most of the studio. As you can see, some of it's a bit wonky, but yeah, we're getting there. So it's about 11:30 nearly. And live is cool, so that's why you do that. So if you have any questions, getting into the industry, how I did stuff, blah blah blah, then I'm here to basically just give my 2 cents, and then you can see if it kind of works for you. One thing that I wanted to pick up on is that obviously most recently the last two videos were kind of related to building kind of a career, I guess, in terms of branding yourself and why that's important. So I thought I would, even though I've given it before, obviously doing 700 videos, I imagine pretty much everyone hasn't watched all of them. So my whole thing when I started out was I was actually, I did my course in uni and I was kind of very practical about it, decided to punt a dissertation. Punting just means kicking, I guess. And so yeah, I decided to basically get as much experience as possible. Came out with like a load of short films. Ended up kind of following a girlfriend at the time to Canada, and that didn't work out kind of straight away. She didn't even meet me at the airport. So I basically punted 6 months after my course, and obviously I built up loads of momentum, and momentum is a key thing that I've talked about before in terms of you getting you kind of in the right psychological place to kind of keep going, really, because when things are going well, then they end up keep going. They get better and better and better because you're psychologically kind of triggered and in the move of doing what you need to do to make things work. So so I'd wasted basically 6 months when obviously with hindsight, but from that built a lot because I was basically stuck in Canada for a month and I couldn't get a job there or anything, and my plane ticket was too expensive to change back. So I had literally a month of me on my own. I managed to find some distant relatives and kind of stayed with them. But I spent most of the days just walking Vancouver. And so I had a lot of time to think about what I was going to do. And obviously I was going to come back to the UK as I did. And then it was going to just be a slog because I didn't live in London. I knew I wanted to be in London because that's kind of the main place, especially for film. It's spread out a lot more these days, the landscape in terms of getting into TV and even kind of content. It wasn't really a thing kind of back in 2011. Again, people were just still getting into Facebook. So yeah, it makes me seem really old now. But anyway, so then I basically got back and I had just an Edirol R44 for anyone that wants to Google that kind of recorder. It has a kind of mixed function in terms of you record 4 ISOs, and when you play them all back at the same time, that's kind of your mix. So with that, I basically was applying every single day on a site called Mandy.com. It's now joined with Film and TV Crew Pro, so I think maybe you have to pay for it. But yeah, I was just basically doing any jobs that were down in London. Now, I was based because my mum, for some reason, has kept moving further north, and so has eventually ended up in Dundee, which is an hour and a half above Edinburgh. And so on a train, if you want to be fancy, that's about 6 hours direct on a train, only stopping about like 5 times. So pretty big, and obviously quite a lot of dosh, which is money in UK. And so then what that meant is that I had to get what's called a megabus. I think it's the same company that do Greyhound buses in the US, if you're watching from the US. And so what that meant is that it was dirt cheap, but that takes 11 hours. So what I would do is I would basically kind of blag at least getting my like travel paid for and a bit of kit money. And then I would spend 11 hours. So I would set off at 8 p.m. and arrive in central London at 7 a.m. which was actually pretty convenient for most kind of shooting times. And then I would go do a shoot, and then if I had another shoot, I would try and blag a bed with anyone, and basically crash on people's floors. And then, yeah, and otherwise I would just go back. And it would be another 11 hours. So I'd usually get the 11 p.m. train, the bus, and then that would, yeah, take me until 10 a.m. the next day back in Dundee. So again, lots and lots of time to kind of think about what the hell I'm doing, and is this all worth it? It better be. I spent about a year and a half doing that because I was saving and putting all my money into equipment, and that served me very well. But as soon as I got back from Canada, the main thing was that I was applying relentlessly to absolutely everything, and then managed to land myself on a feature film, which was shooting from London to Turkey. So I literally applied. It was a free posting, but the job was kind of low pay. For 6 weeks, and basically I applied because I was just hitting refresh every day because I had nothing else to do with my life. I then was the first to apply to it. They got back to me. I got back to them straight away, obviously, because I still had no life back then. And then I went down for an interview on the Friday. They brought me back for a second interview on the Saturday and gave me the job. And it was to start shooting on Monday, and we were only in London for a couple of days. And then I realized that I only had my recorder, because obviously I bought the recorder when I was at uni. And then that meant that obviously I needed other stuff. So I managed to get my fee up front to literally just spend all on equipment. It was only about £2,500, I think it was. So it was ridiculously low. But obviously, desperate times, desperate measures. So rented a couple of radio mics and bought my kind of basic start equipment. So yeah, that was nuts. So so that gives you a bit of perspective in terms of like playing the long game. I think if you're starting out right now, realistically, you should be thinking it's going to be pretty much full on relentless hard work for the first 3 years. I think 3 is the magic number, as it were. So yeah, that's pretty much the way to go. Gotta love a sneeze on live TV. No one ever sneezes on live TV. I don't see many people do that, but it's quite dusty in here. So there we go. So yeah, to put that into context, if you live in the destination where you're trying to work, amazing. If your commute is less than 11 hours one way, you're already doing better than me. If you have more equipment than just a recorder, you're doing better than me at the start anyway. And so there's no reason why you can't basically be really successful. So again, if you need any tips or tricks or whatever you want to call it, hacks is a very popular word, then yeah, shoot me up for that as well. Kev Moore asked a question. Trying to decide whether I need to buy Electros or stick with Sennheiser G3s, I assume, the classic, in terms of radios. Been doing some short films, etc. They are expensive. What is your take on this? Just got 2 DPA 6060s. A boom. Very good. Well, firstly, I would clarify this by how I built my setup, and the kind of best trick, I think, to getting radio mics is that they should be the last things that you kind of get. Apart from Sennheiser G3s, I think they are kind of timeless and very, very, very good. I've still got mine. I managed to buy mine when they had a frequency change over here, so they're all still valid, and I've been using them for years. I think only a few have been absolutely destroyed over the past 10 years from just being chucked around. So yeah, so I would say that yes, obviously Electros are expensive. The trick with radio mics is you are probably, I mean, I have 4 still. I haven't really pushed for any more because I can just rent them, and I still have the super slot, so I have an extra kind of port to put them in. So I would say if you're at the point where you feel like you've got a decent recorder, mixer, whatever combination of that you want, and then you've got at least a shotgun, at least a hyper cardioid, and kind of all the extra bells and whistles, then that's the time to kind of invest in kind of the actual radios themselves instead of renting. Because you've got 6060s, that, again, what I did with my G3s is the first thing I did was upgrade to get the Sanken COS 11s. And I did try DPAs at one point, but they were a bit too kind of sensitive, I kind of found, for the Sennheisers. So yeah, so my take on it is that if you have the money and you have the invoices that are going to come in, etc., to make it a kind of smooth transition, or if you're doing hire purchase, or if you're doing a kind of leasing thing, then I would say go for it. Just make sure that as long as you spend the money on the core kind of thing, because radios get a very expensive game, because obviously the more people that you need, the the more you should get. I recommend you try and start out with at least kind of 4 off the bat. That's what I did. I did hire purchase. So what that means is you basically pay a bit of interest on it, but you can kind of, if you put down the VAT over here, which is like 20% or something. So out of like 10 grand setup, I put down maybe 3 grand and then proceeded to pay them off as quickly as possible, which is pretty good. It's quite easy to judge your cash flow if you go for like a 5-year 5-year plan, but then can pay off early. So that's what I did, and that is my take on radios in general. So yeah, plus doing short films, you'll probably find that 4 is definitely enough. 2 obviously is the minimum, so get a dual receiver, and then two of the actual ones. Even potentially getting time code before radios is probably more worth it, because again, it's stuff that you can add on, and it's quite easy to kind of upsell, as it were, because it's like, are you going to pay for someone to sync all this stuff, or do you want to do it instantly? It's kind of a no-brainer. So yeah, any other questions? We've got a few people watching, which is quite surprising, being away for so long. I didn't think anyone would rock up, and I thought I'd just rant away. So yeah, be really selfish, and yeah, ask me loads of questions. Thanks. This is from Kev still again. Do you find that you have a preference over radios and boom, which I assume means all boom? I mean, preference. It's a little, yeah, it's kind of tricky. I mean, I would say that a good boom placement in the right environment sounds better than a radio, but it depends, because I've had, depending on the kind of shot as well, you need more context around it. So for instance, if people are wearing hats and you get a lav just here, oh, it's so good, especially now it's winter, it's cold. And so what that means is, yeah, hiding in hats, hiding in scarves, and then you can get more impressive sound from kind of wider shots. So obviously they both have their purposes. But if, for instance, I was doing this right now and I had a radio just down here and I had a boom up here, I would have a feeling that potentially, because it's actually quite dead in here, which is, I guess, got a lot of fabric. Yeah, then I would feel that the boom would be better. But again, you're trying to go for both. You're never mixing both completely at the same time. There's this rule where you can, if whatever fader you have fully up, you can kind of mix in the other at like 30% to kind of give it a bit of kick from the radios and the boom perspective. So you kind of get a bit of a natural sound, but still that kind of bite of the main dialogue, which is quite good. So yeah. Any other questions? I realize as well, sorry, that there is a bit of a built-in delay with YouTube, if you can even see my pixelated face at all. And so I will try and answer your questions as soon as they actually pop up. Yeah, so I'm probably going to head home soon, but yeah, let me know. Mark, hey, hope you're well. I find the range on the G3s with a few on the go just isn't very good. I noticed you converted yours for SMA antennas. Does this greatly improve them? So actually, that was another, my boom operator that I was working with. He had his done. They say they do improve the range. I would say also from a practical aspect, the main thing is just the bendy aerial. So for actual storage, it's actually much better. And if you take it one step further, you can put that into antenna distribution, which would greatly improve your range. And with SMA being the connector, you could do SMA to a kind of RF distro, as the cool kids say. So yeah, that distribution could then lead into a Betso fin or something like that, and that should greatly improve your range. Other factors that will generally improve your range are keeping the aerial away from skin or water generally. Water absorbs a lot of RF signal really well. So if the antenna is actually touching the skin of the person, then that can suck out a lot of range. I did a video where you could actually use like Hush Labs, and anyway, you could use anything to separate the actual antenna from the skin, and that will give you improved range. There's a series of videos I did testing the actual Betso Fin, and I went to a massive park. You can watch all the videos, but the long and short of it is that as well, if you have the placement of the belt pack higher, so around the waist, for instance, compared to on the ankle, you'll get more improved range. I assume it's to do with the RF kind of bouncing off the floor and just having more points of reference, and being a kind of bigger target, for lack of a better word, or lack of a better phrase, I guess. So I would say there's a couple of things you do to greatly improve your range. I would also obviously try and use some sort of coordination thing to make sure that you're not intermodulating between your G3s. So I use Freak Finder. I've used that for ages. It's kind of useful even just for noting down your frequencies when you're on jobs where there could be multiple people. So if you do need to kind of send people over like what frequencies you're on, it's quite easy for you to set up at the start of the day and then for everyone else to figure out what they're doing. And that's if you don't go through any sort of licensing body that kind of pre-coordinates them. So like I did the royal wedding, and they're fantastic. They just basically give you the frequency, and that's great. Morris says, "Ha, you have glasses, nerd." Amazing, that's true. You do get a lot. I mean, they don't just give glasses to anyone, so it's really important that you're just really on the ball. So it's pretty good. So any other questions, just let me know, and we'll get to it. I've been using Ursa Foamy on the aerial, which has helped. Did you do the conversion yourself? I didn't. I'm not very actually good at that. So the whole point it's probably easier to get someone else to do it. But if you can do it, then you should do it, because obviously it's cheaper to do. So, and especially if you have quite a few, it's nice just to send them all off and know that they're done. Because then if they don't quite work on a job, then at least it can be someone else's fault, which is always quite fun. Can you recommend anywhere? I would just Google it, to be honest, or I would try and look up basically anyone that makes cables. So I'm sure Pink Noise might be able to do it, or even Wendy's Broadcast if you're in the UK. Otherwise, I would literally Google anyone that makes wires, because then they're obviously good at soldering, etc. And then they'll probably buy the parts for you as well. And then you just pay for the parts, pay for the work, and postage. And then that's it. Turnaround time, I assume, should be pretty good depending on how busy they are. So it's probably good in the long run. I still haven't personally done it myself, but it's because when I'm using G3s, it's either as a camera hop or it's not like mission critical, and because I've got the electrodes for the main wireless coming in, then that's how I get around that. They do have a good cable guy, actually. Blue Cow cables, or production wiring, is another good one. John Perkin. Any other questions, guys? Wow, I managed to crack out like 20 minutes on this bad boy. If it can be of help, I'll try and make some sort of content every day, at least for the next couple of days. And we'll see how we go. Business is kicking off here, though, which is exciting. Basically, all the skills I built from doing sound and marketing myself is working out really well with everything else. So that's always good. And I would say that as a general thing as well, of always be on the lookout to try and learn new skills. I know people that have got jobs because they can ski, got jobs because they can do, speak a different language, got jobs because they do loads of stuff. Kev Moore says, what is my setup? Well, actually, my kit's at home, but essentially it's a 688, way too heavy, I know, but I didn't buy another smaller mixer because I was doing more feature stuff. I might move on to the 888. Not sure. Anyway, that's going into the SL6. The SL6 has 2 sets of electrodes, dual receivers. I got Betso fins if I really need it. Otherwise, the antenna distribution is through the SL6. I've got the Super CMIT, which I love if you're in a tough spot. And then I've got the MK41, the Sherps on a CMC5U for all the technical info. And then what am I running? Sankens on the radios, and then I have a couple of G3s and a load of boxes of tricks of different adapters and mounts. And my setup hasn't really changed that much actually over like the last 2 years. I've been trying like not to buy stuff. And my time code, I should say, at the moment, doing the UltraSync ones primarily. Still have the tentacles, obviously, because I help them out with their thing. So getting all their funding and stuff. So that was fun. I like those guys. But the UltraSync ones are very nice. Even if I don't use the Wave station, I find it a bit cumbersome, to be honest. It's quite easy just to run everything off UltraSyncs themselves. So that is my setup. And I don't think I'm going to change that much. If anything now, because all my other side stuff is kicking off, probably going to slowly stop doing sound. I don't know. Or I'm at least going to start just doing content stuff as opposed to the films. I'm not in it for the glory anymore. So I nearly got to the Oscars once. So that's fun anyway. So any other questions before I wrap up? Again, ask me about anything and I will happily ramble, as you can see. No? All right, I'll give it 5 seconds. 4. Oh, Mark, how are the courses on your website going? Are you still doing those? I'm kind of half doing those. Those are not really my main focus, to be honest. I'm more interested in trying to kick out more stuff here. That was a longer kind of play before I started to do these other side businesses and think about spending more time with a little baby. So I might do more courses if people want to do courses and put them on my thing or whatever. Happy to do it or chat about it or whatever. But otherwise, I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with it, to be honest. It's the same with the app. Like the app got a bit much to kind of maintain, and it wasn't giving as much value as I thought it could have, or as much time as I could dedicate to it. So although it was free, I kind of just canned it because it's, trying to go on to the next thing, you see. So always adapting and changing. So that's it. Any other questions? I was going to ask about the app. Is the information available anywhere else? So most of the information I'm going to try and make available, like they're on those courses, quite a lot of those, or integrated into that. And I'll have a look at my website again. I haven't done anything with my website in a million years. So I'll try and put those back. I went through a phase as well where I just like deleted my whole blog because I was looking back at some of the articles and they're just it was going to take me like a million years to update them all. So I thought it was better to start fresh with the main ones. The gear data sheets and camera. Yeah, I think they still should be there, hopefully. And I might try and make it so people can update it and stuff. Maybe I'll bring out an app again. I don't know. Well, I think I'm gonna call it. But thanks for hanging out for the last 25 minutes or whatever. And I'm sure I'll be on to update everyone soon. So till next time, see you later.